one, fight.
And that's the bottom line.
And his kick is good.
I need a weapon.
You cannot escape.
You forget 1,000 things every day. How about you make sure this is one of them?
Here we go.
It's time for the main event.
What's up, and welcome to the Single Player Experience, the podcast dedicated to all things single player gaming. As always, I'm your host, Sebastion Mauldin, and each week we'll dive into the latest news, in-depth reviews, and hand-picked recommendations to enhance your solo gaming journey. So, whether you're here for the first time or you've been here for a long time, whether you're here for the newest releases or the hidden gems, we've got you covered. Grab your controller or whatever it is you like to do while listening to your favorite podcast. Kick back, relax, and welcome to the world of single player games. Let's get it cracking. All right, so I want to talk to you about a game that I was really hyped for when it was first revealed, a game that I added to my backlog the second it dropped. I want to talk about a game that I was kind of salivating for in the way that I had been hungering for a Western-style RPG for a very long time, and that game is Avowed, Obsidian Entertainment's brand new action RPG set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. So I never played Pillars of Eternity, really. I have the game. I think it was one of the freebies that I got from like either Epic or maybe it was a free game I got through Steam, through my Amazon account. But I remember that I had the game, but I never really checked out Pillars of Eternity. But I wanted to dive into that universe in Avowed because I feel like this was a way that was catered to someone like me, a guy who really likes Western RPGs, to really get into a curated universe that's already been established, that's full of lore. And I was excited about that. So when Obsidian first announced this game, I was hyped. Well, for one thing, it was Obsidian. You know, when they announced something, I listened. You're talking about the guys who made Fallout New Vegas. You're talking about the guys who helped make South Park Stick of Truth, which made me laugh my way all the way through that game. You're even talking about like the Outer Worlds, which for better or for worse, I liked but didn't necessarily love. I feel like I want to give that game another shot because it feels like it's a game that's right up my alley that I didn't quite connect with at the time when I was playing it back in the day. But I respected what they were going for in the Outer Worlds. So whenever Avowed was announced and I saw the trailer and saw the gameplay footage, I wanted to really play this game, check it out, and hopefully fall in love with it. So I got to say, I was conflicted when I first started playing Avowed. Like I was saying earlier, last year we got a ton of JRPGs from the Eastern style, more like Japanese RPGs. And I think those are great. I love those. Persona 5 is one of my favorite games of all time, but we had so many of those that I was salivating for even a Western style RPG. So I've been missing that specific type of flavor. And with Avowed, you know, I was hoping I would get a lot of that Western RPG goodness that I really love about these games. The dialogue choices, the branching stories, the companions that judge you, the worlds that feel like they're alive with consequences. You know, like the games like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Fallout. Those are my comfort food games, man. I love that shit. So I was hoping Avowed would sit right up there with those games that I just talked about. So did it? Let's dive into it. All right, so for those of you who don't know what Avowed is, I already talked about it a little off the top. It's Obsidian's latest RPG. If you played a game like Fallout and Skyrim, it's in a similar vein of that, to where you are playing mostly in a first person viewpoint. You go around and you are basically living a RPG world where you almost can pick up a lot of things like you do in Skyrim. You can your combat is very similar to like an Elder Scrolls type of setup, a little more zippy, a little more chaotic, a little more frenetic as far as like how quickly everything moves. It's not quite as lumbering as Skyrim or Oblivion, but you kind of have that same setup. You're walking around, you're exploring the worlds, you're talking to people. You have side quests that you talk to people and get. So if you played Elder Scrolls and if you play like Fallout and games like that, you sort of get the initial setup. With Avowed, though, let's talk about the lore. So Avowed throws you into the Living Lands, which is a place crawling with corruption thanks to a plague called the Dream Scourge. you're godlike envoy and which is basically someone touched by the gods, and it's your job to figure out what the hell is going on with the world around you. That shit sounds dope. Honestly, the setup, it hooked me. It got me right into the door. I like how strong they presented the lore right off the top. So the opening scene, especially the opening cutscene in this game, is strong. The tutorial aspects of this game, very strong and smooth. For a moment, I really thought, well, this shit is about to be special. But unfortunately, the deeper I got, the more I realized that this wasn't going to hit me the way that I really wanted it to. So I let me give the game its flowers before I really dive deep into what I liked about it, what I disliked about it, and then what I really, really didn't like about it and what didn't click with me. So the gameplay, yeah, the gameplay works kind of like what I've been saying. It works kind of similar in a similar vein to games like The Elder Scrolls Oblivion and Skyrim, but with a little more. It feels like you're playing those games, but with a upgraded modern combat scheme that is also zippy and feels like you're playing similar styles to those games, but with like double speed. And I like that. So the combat is fun. I rolled in like I usually do in RPGs, trying out the warrior stuff first. I did the warrior stuff which is like a sword, basic sword and shield, the classic type of stuff you play with these type of games in the tutorial section. Then I found a wand and a spell book, kind of, I think they call it a grimoire specifically in the game. And I kind of switched lanes a bit and I became more of a mage, and that carried me through most of my playthrough. Yeah, but I mean, the cool thing about this is the game really lets you experiment. I had several instances where I went with a wand in one hand and a shield in the other, or like I used a sword and then my spell book grimoire in another, which allowed me to kind of really create these like really interesting combinations of being able to shoot like fireballs or shoot like these lightning bolts that pass from one enemy to another, or these or rain down these icicles that would basically freeze a area around you or the enemies that in an area effect. And I really like that. Then there was like the axe and pistol combination, which I thought was really cool. It's all on the table here. You can do a lot of really cool, innovative things that you weren't necessarily able to do in Skyrim or Oblivion, and I liked that innovation. I liked the gameplay nature of being able to, let's say, like there's a part that I really enjoyed and really utilized quite often is where I froze water to make platforms, or like, and I did that quite often. It made exploration really fun as opposed to like swimming my way through from one side of a map to another. When there was a giant lake or a giant body of water, I was able to freeze a lot of that water and just walk as I do normally. And it feels like it took off a lot of the time that I feel like is monotonous when it comes to swimming in games like this. So I thought that was really cool. It's a fire addition to the genre, like. Another thing I really liked about it is like some of the companions that you have on your team add some tactical flair, too. Kai, for example, can tank while you do damage, and the the Red Owl wheel system makes it really easy to coordinate all that. You can kind of mix and match what you want to do and coordinate what skills you want to utilize of your companions and kind of like utilize those skills while you're doing your thing in combat. Like, say there was a point to where I would have Kai sneak up on an enemy, distract him, and meanwhile I would just rain down strikes with my pistol, and I feel like that pistol combo is really cool to where you can really utilize pistols mixed in with magic and really do some hardcore damage there. You don't have a whole lot of defense when you do that, but yeah, I thought that was a really cool way to kind of like breathe some fresh life into a genre that, quite frankly, has been a little stagnant for a little bit as far as like the Western RPGs go, especially in the fantasy side of things outside of Baldur's Gate 3. But, so I really liked a lot of the combat here. There is a catch with some of the combat specifically when it comes to the progression, because like progression in this game feels grindy. Crafting materials in general are scarce, and upgrading gear becomes a headache. Instead of experimenting like I did in Oblivion, or like I normally do in games like this, I found myself just hoarding resources because I was so afraid that I was going to waste them. And speaking of like a waste to me, it's like enemy scaling in this game is insane because I feel like there were times to where I was mowing down everything and felt very overpowered and over leveled, and then there was a huge like energy or like enemy scale bump to where like I felt like the enemies got very frustratingly hard really fast, and I I put that on me because I was like a get good situation. Always make sure I had good gear, that sort of thing. And even still, it was a bit of a challenge. I like that. I really liked the challenge, but I feel like the jump from normal enemy difficulty to like the next two tiers above that became unnaturally quick. And I wish I would have kind of had. I wish it would have kind of had like a similar cadence to most of the great games in this genre, where you can progressively see that ramp up coming, and like you feel very prepared for that versus snap. Well, now these enemies are like insanely hard, and I really have to like figure out why and figure out what I need to do to get better really quickly because I'm getting curb stomped. Not to say like, hey, I think games could be hard. I like a good challenge, but yeah, I felt like the enemy scaling needed a lot of work. So overall, combat in this game, it feels chaotic in a way that I didn't necessarily like. I feel like I liked some innovations in the game, but didn't necessarily love a lot of the innovations that happened with or a lot of the balancing issues, I should say, that happened within the game.
Mission complete.
All right, so I want to talk about the visuals of Avowed, the graphics, the ray tracings, how I thought the game looked aesthetically. Because I played Avowed on both the Series S and the Series X. On the Series X, I thought the game looked fine, sometimes even beautiful. Like I thought there were some areas that looked gorgeous. The water effects in particular, I thought looked really great. I thought there were some ray tracing elements, or at least like some reflection elements I thought really looked really good on the Series X. But then I thought it was a whole different ballpark when you play this game on the Series S. It's like you turn a corner and you see like fuzzy textures everywhere. There's stiff animations. That fur, especially on like Harrier characters, such as like people that you meet at the beginning of the game, I feel like that they look absolutely terrible. I feel like the grass and those landscapes look very bad and very just bland and almost like low res at times. I feel like those parts look absolutely rough. I feel like the faces don't emote well and the proportions are always off. At times it felt like this game had, and I know it's not the case because Obsidian, it does really quality work, but with this game, it felt like some of this was done by indie studio, and it didn't quite feel like it was like high tier production whenever, or higher triple, quadruple A production when it came to like some of the visuals. A lot of the times, it felt like to me, it felt like there was moments where it looked like an older game rather than a 2025 release, and my like experience varied. There were some times when I thought the game looked absolutely stunning, and then a lot of the times where I felt like it looked a little bit murky. The textures looked a little like off, like I was saying earlier, and it just didn't pop on the screen, especially compared to a lot of the other games I'm playing this year. So yeah, the visuals I feel like are a mixed bag. I want to jump to the world and the story, and this is where my disappointment really hit because I feel like the story, for better or for worse, never really took off in a way that I felt like I was generally compelled throughout the journey. Like I was telling you earlier, I feel like the game starts off at a really good pace and introduces you to the lore and really establishes some of the stakes, establishes you as a character, but then it really just peters off from there. The more you progress, I feel like the more bland and more like meh the story felt as you went on. It wasn't necessarily like that. I feel like it wasn't necessarily like I feel like the story wasn't there. It feels like maybe it was a little more of the execution side of the fence because like some of the NPCs and some of the side quests, they felt shallow. I didn't also like that the NPCs in the world around you don't react to you. You can rob someone in their own house. Their own house. They can be looking at you in 4K with their own eyes. They can be looking at you in 1080p, steal something from their house, and they'll just keep staring at a wall. Staring, like they don't react to the world around you in the same way that, say, like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, a game that came out, what was that, 2008, I believe? It was like you steal something and it's on site, it's instant. You are instantly have to be on your toes because the person is either going to yell, call for the guards, they're going to square up with you, like they have animosity, they're going to call you on your shit. Like here, it feels like I could steal something from someone's own house after they told me they were broke as a damn joke and they won't do a damn thing about it, but sometimes not even look at you. Like that is crazy to me. It feels very unimmersive. It feels immersive breaking, and it feels like you're playing in a game as opposed to in a universe in a world where you are getting to live out a fantasy, And I it was immersion breaking. Yeah, and the dialogue also, by the way, there's times where it's a mixed bag to where I feel like some of it sounds really modern, which kind of is immersion breaking in its own right for a fantasy style game. And speaking of dialogue, I want to talk about the companions because you had four companions with you throughout the journey. You had Kai, how do you pronounce his name? Maris, Gaeta, and Yatsli, I believe is how she pronounced her name. They had potential. I feel like the characters had potential to be some of the all-time greats in this genre, but they just didn't quite hit. They fell flat. I Believe me, I think they're useful in the combat. Like they bring it. They have their own skill set, their own moves, their own like unique qualities during combat that makes them valuable assets. But emotionally and as characters, which is important to a game like this, they fell completely flat. There's no romances, by the way, which it kind of feels like a miss in this genre. But I get it. There's no big branching arches. And if you compare like the companions, especially with the way they react to your decisions and the way like you make choices that may not agree with their ideology and their morals and such like that, they don't really do anything about it. They don't really react to it, which is crazy to me because if you compare that to a game like Baldur's Gate 3, which I think is a masterpiece, a masterclass at this, or Mass Effect, your choices in those games matter and they shift relationships. Like if you do something in Mass Effect to where like some of your crew isn't vibing with, like you might have beef with them. Like, well, you might have to square up and fight them. Like in Mass Effect 1, if you haven't played, I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't played that game and you have intentions to. Well, like, but there's a big moments in those games to where if you make the wrong choice that one of your crewmates doesn't agree with, and feels like it's against their whole principles of who they are as characters, they'll straight fight you. Like it's on site. And I like that. I feels like you're living in a world with consequences and stakes and living in an area, living and fighting alongside actual people rather than just characters in a video game, like make me care. Avowed didn't do that though. Like Avowed doesn't hit those notes. These companions, even though they do have a story and do have like things they care about, it doesn't really matter whether or not how you react in any situation because they're just going to follow you in the journey regardless. So it feels like a miss there. Yeah, I wish that was a lot better, to be honest, because like to me, that's one of the biggest things I like about this style of Western RPGs is I feel like that character development and how the crew interacts with one another and how they feel about like the choices you have to make, whether or not it fits their ideologies or morality, like whether not like they can live with the choices you make, really has a huge impact on everything when it revolves around a team. Here, it just feels like y'all are all in it regardless of any choices you make. So kind of feels like a miss there. Okay, so honestly, let's talk about my final verdict, my honest and hard truth about this game. Overall, what did I think about Avowed? Um, Avowed is a mixed bag because honestly, I think Avowed is a fine video game. I don't think it's bad by any means. I don't think it's like a absolutely abysmal game. For sure, it's not that, but I don't think it's great either. The combat, I feel like is solid. I feel like the combat is fluid. It flows well. It allows you to do things in this genre that I wish other games would take, as opposed to like you being able to zip back and forth side by side. I like that. Having that dodge mechanic feels like it's innovative in a way that the other games make you feel like you're a rigid robot sometimes. I feel like the way your spells can impact the environments around you is really cool. I like that. I like how the fact that you can mix and match lightning and with water, and it seems like it has effect on people. I like the way you can like freeze freeze water and make ice and actually stand on it and use it as a platform. Go figure. That shit is cool. I like that. More of that, please, in the RPG landscape. I want more of that. Other than that, though, this game is vanilla ice cream, and there's nothing wrong with vanilla ice cream. It's good, it's familiar, it's pleasant, but it's forgettable, man. It's something that you've experienced over and over again. And I say that to say, like, the story is vanilla. It's same old, same old. It doesn't get there doesn't seem to be a high point in there. It's just a straight line, and the characters and companions are just vanilla. There's nothing there that makes them feel special, makes them stand out, makes them feel like you had a strong connection with anybody. Like the elements around the game and the way that the world like doesn't react to you in the way that older games in this genre had the world react to your actions makes this game feel just fine. It doesn't make it feel like a actual experience. It makes it feel like you're playing a game that's almost like a storybook, and regardless of what you do, the story's just going to play out regardless, Like, I think this game is good. I don't think it's great though. If you have Xbox Game Pass, I would advise you check this game out, especially if you are on the fence about it, especially if you like RPGs, Western RPGs, if you like fantasy games, if you like those first person games to make that where you can kind of play it like Skyrim or Oblivion. I didn't mean to say Elden Ring. I meant Elder Scrolls, y'all. But anyways, if you like those type of games, maybe check it out. It's going to be a game that I feel like you can at least get some hours of enjoyability out of. Now, I think you might actually click with this game more than I did. I didn't. I think this game is just middle of the road. But for a lot of people, I heard a lot of people gave this high recommendations. For me, like I told you, middle of the road. But you might click with it more than I did, especially if you want a game that's got a solid combat loop. If you're looking for that next big Western RPG to stand shoulder to shoulder with the greats, this shit ain't it. It's not. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I went in probably with unrealistic high expectations, and I feel like maybe my expectations were too high, and Avowed didn't deliver in the way that I hoped it would. I feel like some of that's on me more than it is on the game itself. Now, I think this game is still fine. It's like I said, fine. It's enjoyable. I think it's a game that some will actually enjoy. Others are going to be bored as shit by it. And then there's going to be those that, like me, say, it's all right. I think I'll move on with my life now. So my final score on this one, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a decent single player experience, but not a memorable one. Definitely check this game out if you're interested into any of the elements like first person Western RPGs in a fantasy setting that's similar, but not quite on the same level as like the Elder Scrolls series. Anyways, go definitely check this out if that sounds up your alley, that is. All right, so that's my review of Avowed. If you played it, I would love to hear your thoughts. I got a poll going on. If you're listening to this on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, if you go down in the descriptions, there's a poll right there. And I don't mean like the naughty type of poll. I mean like actual like a voting poll. So I got a poll going on. I want to hear your thoughts about the game. Let me know if you liked it, didn't like it, or it's just okay. So let me know. Those are the 3 choices below. By the way, if you didn't know, also in the description, you can find the single player experience Discord channel. And that's a perfect way to reach me, talk about it, find some dope games from other people who are playing some really cool single player games, and join the community. We'd love to have you there. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Sorry about the rambling. I know I do that sometimes, but I love you, and I'm glad you stuck around for it. Anyways, thank you again for listening. Don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned because we got a lot more good content just like this coming right at your way. Anyways, this has been the single player experience. I've been Sebastion Mauldin. And remember, single player doesn't mean you play alone. Sometimes it means you play on your own terms. Holla at your boy. Talk to you later.